Just as you predicted, JP, Indians lead the Central. Your predictions always spot on. Psych. Good morning.
Maybe, Lauren, maybe. And I appreciate that, first of all, and good morning. I also appreciate Twitter sometimes when we submit information to the world. Very rarely is there a lot of affirmation and confirmation coming back.
Warm and fuzzy
I received
conversation.
that tweet from the Guardians yesterday. I had to say thanks to them. And certainly there will, on occasion, between my account and the Guardians account, be a little bit of Michigan, Ohio back and forth sometimes during football season. So I very much appreciated the affirmation. And the reality is, Lauren, the Guardians are playing tremendous baseball. We talked about Naylor's game just a moment ago, and of course he has stepped in with Owen Miller being on the IL at the moment. It's really been a great story for the Guardians all the way around. You see Miles Straw getting his extension. Well, he is such a catalyst for this ball club. Stephen Kwan, we've talked about what he has done for them as well. I think overall, and of course I think the other piece of great news is the Jose Ramirez extension. You have him now locked in. He's off to a tremendous start. The pitching we know is always going to be there. Lauren, in this division where the White Sox have had the injury issues you alluded to, Robert on top of Moncada, on top of Giolito, on top of Lynn, the Tigers have had their own injury concerns during the course of the year as well. The Guardians off to a tremendous start. New name, new beginning, new lineup. I think it's a very exciting start to the season there in Cleveland.
Optimism in your voice, JP. I like it. You know, I hate talking about early season concerns because it's 2 weeks in, and if this stretch was in June, nobody would pay attention. But what's being said about Julio Rodriguez and what he's been working on early in the season?
You know, Lauren, it's a great question because the Mariners obviously have such high hopes for Rodriguez. Opening day center fielder, was playing center field again last night, but a multi-strikeout game for him. And early on in the year, there was plenty of conversation about where there's some calls on the margin, borderline calls going against him from a standpoint of balls and strikes. Perhaps that was the case, but now the strikeouts have begun to mount. The Mariners yesterday, as we just saw in the highlight, the story for them was defense as much as anything else. And as long as he remains playing a good defensive center field, especially with Mitch Haniger out at the moment, you probably have to keep him in the lineup, keep him in the major league, certainly. But this is now becoming a storyline. You see what's happened so far. Not getting on base. The average is low. The extra base power, as you see there, just the one extra base hit so far. So I don't think, Lauren, that right now the Mariners are talking about a demotion, certainly for J-Rod at the moment. I think he's going to still be up there in the lineup. It's awfully early, and we're seeing a lot of offensive players still effectively in spring training mode. But I would say this, Lauren, if we're still in this same place 2 weeks from now, the conversation might be different. The reality is right now, this is a team that doesn't have a lot of center field depth. They need him to play there at the moment, and hopefully he works through his offensive struggles right now at the major league level.
It takes time to get comfortable, right? Rooting for him. I asked our coordinating producer about Garrett Whitlock. I said, as a fan, he's a Boston fan, as a fan, when do you want to see him in the game? Word for word, 7th, 8th, anytime. When's he going to be in there?
Well, Lauren, this weekend he might start, and this is probably a function of two things. Number one, his great adaptability. Of course, he came up as a starting pitcher, and also an immediate need right now for the Boston Red Sox. A lot of things happening right now with their schedule at the moment. Tanner Houck reportedly not able to travel to Toronto for that upcoming series, so that is one variable here. Rich Hill is just returning from the bereavement list, but it appears right now, according to reports, Whitlock could be getting the ball to start Saturday's game against the Tampa Bay Rays. And so I think you've seen Whitlock be able to throw multiple innings. He's always had that capacity. We saw last year what a tremendous fit he was for their bullpen late as Matt Barnes has struggled down the stretch last season. I think for right now, Whitlock could be a starter. I would say, Lauren, it's probably going to be a shorter-term, need-based situation for Whitlock to start the game tomorrow, but you see what he's done so far this season. He has been outstanding as he was last season. So I think for now, Whitlock, you want to have him impact the game as much as possible, but also be mindful of where all pitchers are this early on in the season. You don't want to have him bouncing too much back and forth. I do think you probably want to spend those innings right now this weekend, most valuable in the rotation. But when Houck comes back, when Hill comes back, perhaps Whitlock moves back into a relief role, whereas we've seen he is so valuable to the Red Sox.
If we had a normal spring training, to your point, this would be their first start of the season or their first couple games. You talk needs. I saw Roki Sasaki pitch. We all talked about him. We watched him over our phones on YouTube. Holy cow. He's 20 years old. What's the future, JP?
Well, 17 consecutive perfect innings, Lauren. He is, right now, with all due respect to a lot of the stars in MLB, he's probably the biggest story in the baseball world at the moment, is Sasaki. So, as you mentioned, just 20 years old. From talking to sources in Japan, he is not yet close to making the jump to MLB. Of course, as we know, it is an age-based system when you're able to become a free agent and through the posting process to be able to get that major league salary. So I think we are probably plural years away from Sasaki being a part of a Major League Baseball rotation potentially. However, we will probably see him, Lauren, and I cannot wait for these words this coming spring. World Baseball Classic, I would say, is going to be one of the aces for Samurai Japan coming up. There is one pitcher who might make the move to MLB after this season. That's Kodai Senga. We've heard so much about him. Tremendous forkball. He's been one of the star pitchers in Japan for a number of years. So I do think there is a major pitcher coming over after this season, but it's much more likely to be Kodai Senga than it is Sasaki. So in the meantime, Lauren, every Sunday, Japan time, so that means, of course, Saturday night, set your alarm, stay up late, watch that game. He's going to pitch again on Sunday against Oryx, which is a team he faced last year as well. So Sasaki continues his journey on Sunday against Oryx. Most importantly, to all of us, World Baseball Classic in the spring. And one final note on his pairing against Oryx. I checked the game logs from last year. When Sasaki faced Oryx last season, home run by Adam Jones, and it was an authoritative home run. So he does have slight weaknesses. Adam Jones found it last season.
Plural years away. Not happy about that, JP Morosi.
Yes,
and I'll be in
years.
REM sleep, by the way.
You
but
got
I'll
to watch
tape
the
it.
WBC, Lauren. If you watch the WBC, you'll get all you need of Sasaki. He is going to be tremendous to watch in the spring.